In 1991 I had a very pleasant weekend staying with Philip Heselton and his family in Hull and visiting a number of significant sites in the area. The first was St Helen's Well near Market Weighton, a spot on the Yorkshire Wolds where the water emerges from the side of a hill into a triangular stone basin. It was a very pleasant, peaceful setting to begin the trip. From here we travelled on to Millington Wood for our lunch. It's on the side of a hill with beautiful woodland walks full of wild flowers. We were even lucky enough to see a hare dash past. After this we continued on to the Church of St Michael and All Angels, Garton-on-the-Wolds, an ancient church, the walls of which were covered with 19th century pictures depicting biblical scenes. These have had to be recently restored. The church seemed fairly powerful. The next place was very different, though similar in flamboyance. The huge obelisk to a local dignitary, looking like a Russian Vostok rocket about to take off. Taking video on this windswept height was very difficult. It was virtually impossible to hold the camera still. I feel these obelisks must be subconsciously sighted. They're usually visible from such great distances. After this we climbed the huge tumulus of Willie Howe, with a clump of trees on its summit and a large depression in the top, probably caused by seekers after treasure. One of the trees was multiple, with a small pool of water between the trunks. We finished the day with a visit to the tallest monolith in England, at Rudston. Dwarfing the gravestones, this immense piece of stone stands by the village church. Crop marks have revealed that it's at the centre of a number of Neolithic cursuses, which converge on it. Unfortunately, recently someone has decided, probably from the best of motives, that it ought to be capped with lead. Earth Mysterians have protested that it might affect the energies at the stone and the area, apparently to no avail. This is probably not the first desecration of the monolith. The name of the village comes from rude stone, which probably means a cross was fixed to the top. It does in fact look damaged, as if that was the case.
Careful, don't, that'll hurt you, that barbed wire.
Next day we travelled south to Lincolnshire, to see Bob Dickinson, editor of Markstone. We stopped on the way at Julian's Bower Maze, situated on the side of a hill near Auckborough, with a good view of the river, and were lucky enough to be present when it was being recut. It was clearly in great danger of disappearing. The two gentlemen cutting it were 81 and 62, and told us a lot about the area now and in the past. We were directed to the church, where there is a replica of the maze on the floor of the porch, and apparently some of the gravestones carry it too.
Right, there's a celebrity. Oh yeah. At Boberton. Yeah. And nearly 460,000. And 4,000. Mind you, you ain't had a very good hearing with a farmer, and you were going to do one, well, then you charge you. If you went the money in, you went, oh, well, there, I went to do it. There was 1 and 6, 1 and 9, 1 and 3, how much it was. When you sold them, it was £75, £70. How much did you put it? Not that now, is it? I've done that one here. He still ain't giving me. And he did a big way. Yeah. Big way. Oh, that can't be right. 30 years ago. I built that very soon. Oh, the very thing. That's when it went to the committee now. The committee, and they and then there was all on that wood. It's all fenced in.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So they can't go.
Aye, millionaire, is
yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah.
He bought the farm, you see. And unfortunately, no, he'd let it. He didn't want it. Well, the chap who bought it had cancer when he bought it, and so he died, and his son's a shepherd, I think. And
yeah.
Got him Lund. I don't think he's interested.
Not very interested.
No, he's trying to sell some of land.
Yeah.
He's let that down there. Fabulous figure.
Yeah.
He let it without property.
Yeah, I see. They'll look dead, don't they?
That's Ducktown.
Is it? Yeah. Oh.
Those are all going up the hill there, and they're all that farm.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
Oh.
They're supposed to saw them down and burn them.
Yes, they are.
Aye.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
not many left now.
No, it's a Ducktown, and there's nothing there good up there. What's gone?
About 20 years ago that came in. I think it's about a bit more than that.
It's not so bad, but it was coming clear last night. See you on Wednesday. And all the water, all them thunderstorms, because that's what's coming into there. Out. And they was putting it out right away from Scarborough.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah. And we did we want some.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, really?
We want some. Well, he will do his garden and all, and we'll do the garden. And the porch.
Yes.
You want it?
Yes, we'll have a look at that.
You can have it.
Oh.
And if you're going to Hopper Cemetery, there's still there. So it'll just quiet what had this there. It's on his. It's house is quiet. Jimmy comes.
Yes, you see it.
No, but is it right that Billy's bought Great Stone for something? I wouldn't know. They could have done, because I tell you, they had no money. I must have heard a bit about him to do that. Right. Well, what did he say when he died? All business wrong with the day, it's called. Grateful funeral. My friend. The old lady died without any money. He's on it. Open grave that just was dead for it.
Yeah, well that's
They were gentlemen,
yes,
wasn't
that's right.
Actually, it wasn't no, he only took it to get this ticket. Oh, right. I'm going to tell you there when it comes to it. His brothers and them lived the court back here in Lincolnshire.
Oh yes, yeah.
And they were nice to see one of them. Well, either of the brothers could have it, but one of them liked London, so he stopped. Yeah. The other one came here. And he tougher than me, that one. Let me have a go at it.
Did all this morning. It's called the Dragon Rock, in the village of Dragonby. Now, I don't know that anyone necessarily knows very much about it, but it's also known as the Sunken Church. The idea being that this is just the tip of the top of the church that's been sunk into the ground, and you can hear, apparently on certain occasions, people singing. So it's got these elements of ritual significance, sounds heard, and also, of course, the name Dragon. So it's an interesting place. It's far more than you can just see here. As we go up and see that there's far more of it. Quite sure exactly the sort of stone, but it's some sort of limestone, rather similar to the stones that roll by. Similarity to water. Well, they would contain water, I think. I don't know. It sort of suggests that they might have been used in that way.
Depression? Yes.
We continued from here to Bob's house, situated in a stunningly beautiful and remote spot among acres of cornfields on every side. They've landscaped the garden to include a row of small stones pointing to the midsummer sunrise, and it's a very lovely, tranquil spot with old twisted apple trees. We first visited a hillside where a number of stones were in alignment near a spring. Lincoln Cathedral was visible, as it is from most of the sites in this area. Possibly the high spot of the weekend came next, a visit to the Devil's Pulpit at Tealby. This is in a large hilly area with a number of small but striking Scots pine clumps scattered about and outcrops of rock. At the bottom of the hill runs a stream with a waterfall, and the whole area, though natural, almost has the atmosphere of a place such as the Chalice Well Garden at Glastonbury. It was full of a most peaceful, benign power, and we found we wanted to stay longer than we had originally intended. The Devil's Pulpit itself is a large outcrop of rock in the shape of a pulpit, standing on a narrow neck which looks much too fragile to support it. There is a smaller rock close to it, and from one angle it looks like a human face with a dog looking up at it.
Not the sort of place you want to sort of rush away from. I didn't laugh. Okay, so that's also ahead. Yeah.
The next site we visited had a much more austere atmosphere. King's Hill Tumulus. Rising from the middle of cornfields, this mound has traditions of bad luck attached to it. We certainly seem to experience, as when we returned to Bob's house, Philip was suddenly quite ill, and also a meal set out in the garden was suddenly terminated by a very violent downpour of rain.
Yeah, just what the cathedral is.
There's a church between us and the cathedral.
That's right, yeah. Greetwell Church. Sort of 13th century.
Yeah.
Strange pattern. Crop flattening. Around here, isn't it? It really isn't it? It's very strange.
Yes.
Is it the wing that's... Novel to that. I'll show you. Yeah. Like a turf maze. Very right, yes. I think mine is riper than this.
Yes.
I know.
Yes. Well, I have seen some today that's been ripe
Yes.
in other places.
Different, I don't know. When they're planted on all different seasons.
Yeah.
No, I won't actually show that. Oh well, it's not getting any worse.
Last year's crop left near the mound.
On the evening of the following day, Hilary took me to see a maze designed by Philip in Hull city centre. It was the standard pattern done in a square, picked out in buff-coloured brick on a pedestrian concourse of red brick. There is a plaque in the centre describing it, and Hilary said she'd seen children walking it on occasion.